Delmarva Today with Don Rush.
University of Maryland Eastern Shore mourns the loss of two of its students. The regional airport in the Salisbury area extends its runway for more and larger aircraft. The Maryland Senate candidates debate. A forum on the measure that would eliminate the Wicomico County executive position was held this week. And the Jewish Committee marks the one-year anniversary of the October 7th attacks by Hamas. Welcome to Delmarva Today. This is Don Rush. In our studio this afternoon is Coastal Point reporter Susan Canfor. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Don. Thank you.
So, first of all, we have the deaths of those two students who attended the University of Maryland Eastern Shore in a serious car accident. Two others were injured. What do we know?
Yes, the community is mourning the loss of those two students who attended the University of Maryland Eastern Shore in Princess Anne. They were killed last week on October 6th in an accident in Seaford, Delaware, that injured two passengers as well as the driver and passenger in the other car. And that's all according to the Delaware State Police. Killed were 18-year-old freshman Michaela Belton of Pennsylvania and 22-year-old Eric Stanley of North Carolina. Both of them were pronounced dead at the scene. Another 18-year-old and another 22-year-old in the other car were both critically injured. The accident was a head-on collision on Route 13 near Cannon Road in Seaford. Delaware State Police reported the other vehicle involved was going the wrong way, and that driver, a 24-year-old man who lives in Georgetown, might have been impaired. After the accident, Campus Mental Health Day was declared at the university, with university officials saying the school is a small community of friends, and when there's a tragedy, everybody is impacted. LaToya Jenkins, Vice President of Enrollment Management and Student Experience, told WMDT.
As a small, close-knit community, we are all feeling the impact. And so today, as I'm talking to students, faculty, and staff, there is a sadness and some grief on campus. Counseling services will look like individual counseling and meeting those needs, as well as group counseling for people who want to come in and be amongst their peers of students, staff, or faculty.
And counseling was available for grieving students at the university.
Also, we have some top government officials that gathered for a groundbreaking ceremony for the much-anticipated runway expansion at the Salisbury Ocean City Wicomico Regional Airport. Susan, I assume it was quite a day.
It was quite a day. Maryland Governor Wes Moore was in Salisbury Thursday for the groundbreaking of the new runway expansion at the Salisbury Ocean City Wicomico Airport. The runway is going to be expanded from 6,400 feet to 7,600 feet, and that will allow the airport to increase the number of flights in the area and bolster the region's economy. The governor was introduced by Wicomico County Executive Julie Giordano, and he was flanked by Senator Ben Cardin and Senator Chris Van Hollen, as well as Airport Manager Tony Rudy. Everybody was gathered at the end of the current runway in the grass, where about a dozen golden shovels were set up for the governor and several other officials to break ground on the expansion. Governor Moore called the event a great day for not just Wicomico County, but a great day for the entire state of Maryland.
This should be a place of destination. And to make it happen, this really has been a tremendous team effort from both the public sector, the private sector, our partners all throughout government.
He said he's been to the Eastern Shore 25 times since he took office, and he joked that he's thinking about changing the capital from Annapolis to the Eastern Shore of Maryland, as everybody clapped and cheered, and they accepted souvenirs, chunks of the old runway handed out in little plastic bags, and bottles of water and keychains, both with the words Salisbury Airport printed on them. Bill Chambers, president of the Salisbury Chamber, said the expansion is a massive win for the area, with funding from Wicomico County, Worcester County, Ocean City, and the state and federal governments. The expansion is being called an essential economic victory for the lower shore. Right now, Piedmont Airlines has its headquarters in Salisbury, and airport officials are working to bring another airline here. The airport manager, Tony Rudy, said the airport will apply for an $800,000 small community air service development grant from the U.S. Department of Tourism. He said every year the Salisbury Airport has to remain competitive because they lose tens of thousands of passengers to other airports.
And also we had a row of sorts, I guess, with the Princess Anne Town Commissioners, a meeting over the budget. What was going on here?
That happened this past Monday evening. The Princess Anne Commissioners approved a budget that leaves the town with a deficit. The motion to approve it passed by a 3-2 vote. and that included grants for small businesses. The problem, for one of the commissioners at least, is that two of the commissioners on the board with him own small businesses, but they did not recuse themselves from the vote when the budget passed, and that angered Commissioner Joseph Gardner. Every town has an ethics code, he said, and the two commissioners who own small businesses, Commission President Lionel Frederick and Vice President Shelley Johnson, should not have voted if there was even a possibility that that vote could have benefited them. That's what Gardner said. We are hearing the Commissioner President, Frederick, told another news agency who asked about the vote that the town will not have any further comment and that the matter is behind them. There is a Maryland Ethics Commission, but it does not have jurisdiction over local government. A complaint could be made to the state prosecutor's office, and that office could be asked to investigate, but we have not heard yet if the state prosecutor is going to be brought into this. The budget passed by a 3-2 vote, and Gardner was one of the commissioners who voted against it. What we do know is that Gardner was also displeased about the budget being passed because it went against town charter. That's because the version that was passed, known as ARPA Budget Number 2, named for the American Rescue Plan Act, will leave the town in a deficit. The other proposed budget, ARPA Budget Number 1, would have given the town a surplus of more than $79,000, but that budget passed allocates an extra $225,000 in grant funds to small businesses, and that's why Gardner so adamantly objected.
So, and a bit on a lighter note, in Ocean View, they're finally getting around to banning smoking and vaping on public property, particularly the parks. How did it come to this? I know they've had signs to discourage the practice.
They've had signs for years, but they never had an ordinance to, what the police chief told me, put some teeth into that ordinance. So this week, the Ocean View, Delaware mayor and the town council formally introduced the ordinance to prohibit smoking tobacco or marijuana in any town park and also prohibiting vaping. Last month, the council talked about it, and the chief of police, Kenneth McLaughlin, told me signs have been up for years, but no fine was ever set. If the ordinance is passed, there will be a fine set. It is set to be voted on first reading at the November town council meeting. Town ordinances are passed after 2 readings. The Ocean View mayor, John Reddington, told me the fine amount hasn't yet been determined, but he thinks $100 is logical. But the chief of police and the town manager both said violators will receive a warning first and only fined if there are future offenses. And interestingly in this story, 15 years ago, Ocean View native Kelsey McGill went before the town council, and she was the first one to ask that no smoking signs be erected. She was 14 years old, a little nervous speaking in front of the town council, but she said she was determined to keep the park she grew up playing in, John West Park, smoke-free. And we spoke with Kelsey.
You're one of the instigators. At a very early age, I might add. Tell me your story. What was that about?
Yeah, so I guess about 15 years ago, I was one of the instigators. I was 14 at the time. I'm 29 now. But I was involved in this group called Kick Butts Generation. It's still around. It's an anti-tobacco youth movement in Delaware. And at the time, we were really, focused on going into our own communities, talking to our town councils, and trying to get these no smoking measures put in place in our town parks, mainly to protect the kids who played there from secondhand smoke, from having cigarette butts all over the place where they were playing, and just to kind of protect the safety and health of the park. 15 years ago, I went before our Ocean View Town Council and kind of pleaded my case. Talk to them about, the dangers of secondhand smoke, that, how long it takes for cigarette butts to break down, all the different, kind of reasons why I wanted the council to, at the time, in 2009, put something in place to prevent smoking and cigarette use in the park. That resulted in some lovely signs going up in the park that are still there now that say, please, no smoking in the park. But it sounds like now they are kind of taking that work and putting something into place, putting an ordinance into place to help them actually have a way to enforce that. So I'm really excited to see that.
So what do you think it changed their mind? I mean, obviously you had these signs up. That's sort of a voluntary kind of thing, as it were. And now they're sort of looking at enforcing this. I mean, what kind of sense do you get in terms of the kind of change of mind that's taking place here.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think we've come a long way in 15 years. I think, we've seen a lot of other towns, Bethany, Rehoboth, do kind of similar measures, especially on their beaches, on their boardwalks. And so I think, the town council and the Ocean View Police Department have just kind of come a long way in realizing that this actually is something that we can enforce. I love that, they're recognizing that something that they are responsible for is really protecting the health and the safety of the park and of the people who use the park and of the employees who work there. So I think that, it was probably just a long time coming, and, I'm not sure exactly what changed their minds, but I'm glad that something did.
Do you see this as a trend?
I think so, yeah. I mean, it's, like I said, we're kind of Ocean View is one in a long line of other Delaware towns that are enacting similar ordinances, similar bans. So, like I said, I think even as a society, we've come a long way in terms of how we approach secondhand smoke and protecting our kids from it.
And that was Kelsey McGill.
Also want to turn now to a traffic study of Rehoboth Beach. They're looking at a study that recommends some changes in Rehoboth Beach, including extending the length of the paid parking in the resort. What's going on here?
Results of that traffic study in Rehoboth Beach were discussed this week, and one idea is to build a parking garage downtown or to add more parking spaces. They also talked about extending the season that we all have to pay to park in the resort. Proposed is paying to park from May 1st all the way until the end of October now. The idea, Rehoboth Beach Commissioner said, is to help manage parking demands during the off-season. All of the ideas are on the town's website, and city officials will talk about it again at their November 15th meeting.
And finally, we obviously have a series of hurricanes that are hitting Florida. The latest has been Hurricane Milton. Apparently, we've got some more down the road, as it were. And I understand that Delaware State Senator Gerald Hocker had been down there. What did he tell you about the conditions that he saw at the time that he was there?
Well, Florida and the surrounding states were badly battered by Hurricane Helene and then by Hurricane Milton. And now there's another storm churning, Hurricane Nadine, that could also hit that area. And as we know, families and businesses have been just devastated. And churches and businesses in Delaware have been collecting items like bottled water, cleaning supplies, pet food, flashlights, batteries, and other items and sending them to victims of these storms. Among them is Hawker's Supercenter near Ocean View, and that big grocery store is owned by Senator Gerald Hawker of Delaware and his family. A tractor trailer filled with bottled water, bathroom tissue, and all kinds of other items donated by the store and by local residents was sent down there to the affected areas. Just days after the Hawker Supercenter hosted the Hurricane Relief Drive, I talked to Senator Hawker, and he was at the time vacationing in Fort Myers as Hurricane Milton was stirring up the ocean. He was evacuating and getting ready to fly home as we spoke. He told me everybody is coming together to help a very devastated area, not just one state, but several states hurt by that hurricane. Also helping the Atkins family, owners of Treasure Beach RV Park and Campground in Delaware near Selbyville, and also East Coast Campers and more in Frankfort, Delaware, have all sent items to those victims. And if we see a third storm, we'll see them send even more, I'm sure.
So did he say any sense about what it was like?
He said it was raining like crazy. I talked to him earlier this week, and he said we're flying out. He and his wife only got 5 days of a 2-week vacation in. They were flying out. He said it's a good thing we made reservations when we did, because we never would have gotten a flight out. They closed the airport shortly after that as Hurricane Milton approached that area where he was. He was in Fort Myers, and he said he was coming home, and he wanted to do what he could to help the victims.
Did they see any impact of this, or aside from the rain, or
it was just rain when he was there? It was just rain. He got out in time, luckily. It was just heavy rain. But he said people were scrambling to evacuate and pack up and board up their buildings and their homes, put sandbags out. It was just a lot of confusion and just a rush to beat the storm.
Well, we've been speaking with Susan Canfor. She's a reporter for Coastal Point. Appreciate you stopping by and chatting with us.
Thank you, Don.
You're listening to Delmarva Today. This is Don Rush.
Delmarva Today with Don Rush.